let's talk about football to start off with then. What's happening with United?
Probably quite similar to what's happening with Wednesday, really, in the sense that the club ownership have not seen eye to eye with the fans, and they've not turned out to be all they seemed at first. I had a big issue with United fans who were laughing at Wednesday, for the whole chancery thing, because you can laugh at all sorts of things like results or, mishaps like that. But one thing I don't tend to laugh at is when somebody takes over any club and drives them into the ground or goes against fans' wishes. So I think we're actually, even though we're a division apart, I think we're actually at similar junctions. I don't think Sheffield United, obviously we sacked Wilder and then we got Jukanovic and sacked him, and it's a sort of state of confusion that Wednesday, and although I think Wednesday will be like both my older brothers are Wednesday fans, and they're both quite happy with Darren Moore. Not ecstatically happy, but I think they see him as representative for where they are and a good amount of that division. So
yeah. I mean, I apologise to the podcast listeners who aren't involved in the internecine battles between Wednesday and United, but it's an important part of our cultural life in Sheffield. And even though I've lived in London now for 35 years, I've still got a season ticket and stuff, and I come up and see them whenever I can. It's a tough thing, but I think it's almost like that. Well, be careful what you wish for thing, isn't it? Because
of course,
the whole thing when Chancery came in and they're all doing like the thing, waving £50 notes, going loads of money and tuna bucks and all that, and then it's like we got loads of money and nobody really knows who's got any money really, because the fit and proper test for owners is in itself not fit and proper. So but how are you keeping anyway during this COVID?
Right, just one last little Sheffield connection. We went to the same school, didn't we?
What, Crooksmoor?
No, you went
King Ted's.
King Ted's, didn't you?
I didn't know you went to King Ted's.
I only went for a year, but my brother went for 2 years, and my oldest brother went for probably 4 years.
How old are you?
I'm 59.
Right. You'd have. I'm 65, so yeah, I wouldn't have.
You're older than my oldest brother, but he probably would have been there when you were there.
Right.
As I said, I only went there for a year and then moved down south.
Oh yes, that terrible fag Heaton. I remember. Yes, I remember giving a good sound thrashing. No, I was never into all that stuff. Looking back on it now, I think, oh God, I'll get in trouble for this probably. I keep getting asked to go to like, to alumni kind of events, and I don't like that kind of thing. Yeah. I thought, looking back on that school now, I think it was completely shit. In terms of educational facilities, I just think it was full of brutal in some cases. I got caned, and I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I got caned twice in King Ted's by who turns out to be a guy who turned out to be a bit of a pervert. He insisted on not having anybody else around when he was being done as well. It's horrible. You can't imagine that shit now, can you?
No, I think by the time I got there, it was just an ordinary comprehensive.
Yeah.
And the only reason I went there and not Tapton, which I really want, all my mates went to Tapton, was because our Mark, my oldest brother, for some reason passed his 11 plus, which is absolutely incredible because he'd been a builder ever since. He's just a labourer. And I don't know how he did it. I don't know whether he cheated. It wouldn't surprise me because he's that sort of person. But still, we got to go to that school, but I lost a lot of me. I went to Lidget Lane, Lidget Lane School.
Yeah.
As a junior, and nearly all my friends went to Tapton, so I was.
Is that right? God, I still love Sheffield, though. I have to say, I'll never. My love will never diminish. I don't think.
Yeah.
And
anyway, yes, I'm all right. It was obviously tough for a load of people, and you don't like to complain. But it was quite a long time. I lost my mum in November.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But was
I was my brother in last December as well to COVID.
and my best mate died in March this year. Was it no, it wasn't. It was August this year. Bloody hell, while I was on holiday. So, and there's all sorts of things gone on, but I'm sort of quite a positive person. So, and quite a sort of leader. So I don't tend to sort of dwell on things. I don't let things get me down. My mum was like 90. My best friend lived a full life. So yeah, it's been fine. I just had to keep an eye on my daughters. I've got quite a young family. I started late with children. So I've got a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So keeping them sort of occupied has been quite a job. But apart from that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very tough time. I've got a 25, 26 and a 23-year-old, and it's been incredibly tough for them. And still is, actually, in some ways. It's just it's a different world now. Anyway, let's talk about cheerful stuff. What are you creatively working on at the moment? This is the way I do these, by the way. Is like I dodge around the timeline. I'm not.
Yeah,
It's not. It's not. It's not. This is your life.
Okay. Well, my pattern of work was we had an album out just as lockdown came. We had an album out, so we weren't able to tour that. So, but because there was quite a lot of time, I had time to go away and do my lyrics and do my tunes and everything. And so we've just started. We just finished the tour, and we've just started recording a new album.
Oh, great!
Manchester. So yeah.
So it was the album you're talking about, Manchester Calling.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been listening to that this morning. There's some great songs on there. I really like The Outskirts of the Dance Floor. That's a beautiful.
Oh yeah. My daughter sings on that. I managed to persuade her to sing. She's not a singer, but I just wanted her to sing on it, and yeah, she sings along with me.
So what is it about Sheffield? What is it that it's the progenitor of all these amazing, unusual bands? I mean, it's way beyond the average, isn't it, for a town that's nice?
It's massively beyond. And having lived in Hull and Leeds, very briefly in Leeds, Sheffield, in terms of Yorkshire, is the envy of all the other cities, without a doubt. Manchester is comparable. Manchester produces a lot of bands and a lot of music and sort of characters, but I don't know about Sheffield. It's really unusual. It's eccentrically unusual. The amount, and not just the amount of music, but the amount of different types of music. There's like there was all the Heaven 17 stuff. There was Cabaret Voltaire. I listened to them when I was really young. They came on John Peel, and John Peel always announced where every band was from.
That's right.
Gave Sheffield bands, and I wasn't living in Sheffield at the time, but I always gave Sheffield bands and an extra listen. There was a band called 2.3 or 2.3.
Yeah, Paul Bauer. He's a mate. Oh, he'll be so thrilled that you mentioned him. Yeah, he's my best mate on earth, Paul. Yeah. And he started performing again recently. He's like doing little, kind of open nights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I loved all that stuff and the identity. But the weird thing about Sheffield is, unlike Manchester, which has all the bands have sort of got this strong Manchester identity. There was bands in Sheffield just cropping up independent of one another and without being part. I know there was a sort of Sheffield scene, that you're seeing a little bit, but whilst that was going on, other things were sprouting up. It didn't sound like that, and that was what was more than a coincidence to me. I could understand. All right, when I went to Sheffield after the Arctic Monkeys had exploded, I saw a lot of bands who were trying to sound like that. But in general, apart from that, all the new bands that came in were new. And you could go to Leadmill or something like that and hear a Sheffield band, and they would sound nothing like any of the typical Sheffield bands. And I include in that Def Leppard, Joe Elliott's stuff, Joe Cocker's stuff. Where it was around about the same time. People forget, it was during some heavy. It wasn't. It was happening at the same time as a lot of other music was happening from Sheffield. When Def Leppard happened. So yeah, it's really, really unusual, and I don't know why. I always thought it might be, although it might be a strong comprehensive system, because it did have one of the earliest comprehensive systems in the country. It might be something to do with. I really don't know. I don't know.
Rehearsal space was cheap and readily available.
Right, yeah, without a doubt. Sheffield utilised that bit between, I don't even know what you call it, around about where the lead mill is, between Bramall Lane and the town centre.
Yeah.
I remember going there in sort of like the early 80s, just wandering along to go to Bramall Lane before
More. Is that what it's called?
I don't know. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's a bit, I always try and run to catch the train. But yeah, that was alive with music then. And you could hear bands rehearsing. Sheffield City Council was a really progressive council for a while as well.
Really cheap, isn't it? And
Yeah, red tape, exactly. And that's in that sort of area or on the edge of that area. So I don't know. I think it was facilitated. I think it was, I don't know. You can't just build a load of studios and have the space without people wanting to form bands. But
I think it was a unique kind of combination of that and the big student community.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're all in close proximity. For people who don't know, who are listening to the podcast, the Sheffield University is pretty close to the city centre. And so you can walk from the main campus into town, into the city centre in about 15 minutes, So consequently, all those pubs that were around there, and I used to live on Broomhall Flats and during that period, and we all used to populate the same pubs, really. Even though we used to take the piss out of students, we thought they were wastrels, But we all had fake student union cards anyway to try and get into all the great gigs they used to have there as well.
Yeah, I think also we sort of, for example, Pulp, they sort of survived in Sheffield because they had a crowd, and you could get a crowd in Sheffield, and it would be partly students, maybe 50%, maybe 75%, but they were there, and that sort of propped up your audience. And so Pulp, I thought, were able to keep the head above water and become popular in Sheffield, which sounds like now, compared to how big they are, sounds like a small thing, but it wouldn't have been for them at the time. And on the subject of Pulp and the variety, then you've got somebody like Richard Hawley crops up, which sounds totally different to Pulp and different to anything else Sheffield's ever sort of really come out with. So yeah, it's a very unusual place.
Yeah, the first podcast I did was with Richard, and he's a box of tricks, isn't he? I didn't realise he played with Scott Walker. He's been over to America as a session guitarist. I love his stuff completely, and his musical is good. Have you ever thought about doing a musical?
I have done a sort of musical. Yeah, I did one called The Eighth, which was about the 7 deadly sins.
Oh right, I read about that. Yeah,
yeah, and it was exploring what the 8th sin was, and the 8th sin was gossip. And so it was just about that, and about it's hard to explain, very hard to explain. I did it for the Manchester International Festival. I only played it 8 times, which appealed to me. And yeah, I don't suppose I'll ever do it again, but yeah, it's quite interesting. It's on Spotify. I'll listen after we've.
I will actually. I will have a listen to that.
Had Reggie Caffey in it playing the main narrator, and a few other people playing different parts.
One of the great things about this podcast is people take the recommendations from the artists, and then they go down a rabbit hole, and that's how they find out about the more esoteric things about their careers and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Are you friends with Dean Honer and Adrian Flanagan? Do you know them?
No, I don't know if they're from the Sheffield scene. I don't know anybody.
Right.
My history was I moved down to Surrey when I was 13, and then I began a relationship. Really, I kept my relationship with Sheffield via Sheffield United, travelling all over. And I'd go to Wednesday matches with my brother because he was also isolated down there. So we used to both go, keep each other company. And then in this sort of about 1980s, that coming on, and maybe I had a bit of money, stayed the night, because I had a job, stayed the night and would go to Leadmill and listen to bands, etc., etc. And then I moved to Hull in 1983. So my relationship sort of cut off between about 75 and probably 79. And then when I got a job in an office straight from school, I got a bit of money and started coming back up to Sheffield. And then, so I don't know many people from Sheffield, really.
Right.
Been old schoolmates from Lidget Lane and a couple from King Edward's. I keep in touch with them, but apart from that, I don't know the scene, and I wasn't part of the scene, really.
Yeah.
Just visiting all the time. I
yeah.
stay at, you know, Fat Cat Pub?
Where's that?
It's sort of on the way to Hillsborough. Again, I don't know all the areas. It's a real ale pub, but they probably won't even know I worked there. But I worked there, and then I got offered accommodation. So I'd sort of come up there and work in the summer. And it was really nice rebuilding my connection with Sheffield. And then finally I moved back up to Yorkshire. My mate wanted somewhere by the seaside. I wanted to move back up to Yorkshire. So it shows Hull, you know, like, because it's fairly near.
No, I like Hull, you know. I've got lots of friends. The people are lovely. In fact, our one of our backing singers is from Hull, and I've become like adopted into their family now. They're so warm, these people. It's like,
Yeah.
the entire crew turn up for every gig. It's like about 20 of them, you know. The Hull's a great place, I think. Yeah. So the Housemartins obviously were massively successful. How did that kind of change you? I mean, did you feel that changed you? And the other thing is, were they popular in other massively popular in other territories, or was it more of a UK thing?
Well, yeah, they were popular in Germany and Holland, you know, Belgium, France, and fairly popular in America. But I didn't want to go to America. I didn't feel safe flying there because I had a fear of flying.
Right.
In answer to whether it changed me, it did. I tried for it not to, but it did. I mean, like, for example, when we were first signed, I instead of an advance, I said, "Look, can we be put on a wage for 3 years?" Which was a way of stemming the how I thought it might change us. And it was a good idea, and it was I'd been on the dole for like 2.5 years and was just so depressed about what I ate, you know, and how I it was just not very nice. So it changed us immediately in terms of that, but it also changes your perception of everything. Not always negatively. Parts of my life improved. I became more confident in certain situations. Instead of playing on my shyness, which some people I think did, and pretending to be more shy, I came out of my shell, you know, because, yeah. So there was good parts of it and bad parts of it.
I suppose the touring thing. Did you do a lot of touring?
We didn't do, the Housemartins did actually, and I learned from that not to do so much work. I put the brakes on between the two albums. I said to this, look, I don't want to do kids television anymore. I don't want to just tour every time they say tour. And that didn't go down very well. They couldn't quite understand it. But I was from that. We got our breakthrough John Peel. And I was from that John Peel sort of thought process. So as soon as we got on radio, I said, look, we can drop doing all the kids' television stuff. My dad was really good. My dad was quite a bright person. And he was just saying, look, what they'll do with you is you get to the end of this tour and they'll ask you if you want to go to America. They'll ask you go to Europe. And he said, and what they'll do, and when you say no, they'll offer you more money and they'll buy you time off you until you've not been home for a year. And he said, and when you've not been home, they'll try and buy that last week off you. Instead, they'll fly you back or get you a helicopter or taxis here and taxis there. And he was exactly right. And that's exactly what happened. I came home after that sort of first tour on London and all four. I walked into a house. I was just thinking, I shut the door. I was thinking, what happened out there? You know, like, what has just happened? I looked in the mirror and I called myself Paul instead of Paul Heaton, you know, because I'd forgotten who little Paul was. And yeah, it was just madness. And I walked into the house and I hadn't had any food and I'd seen the house. I didn't know, it was just crazy. But
I think people,
no.
yeah, I think people, it's very hard for people outside the industry to understand how stressful all that is. And I know it looks like from the outside, it looks like the most glamorous thing on earth. We decided with Hem17 to knock the touring in the head for the reasons you're saying. And we were at one point we were offered $1 million to tour just California when Temptation was happening, and we turned it down.
Yeah.
I think possibly it was a mistake in retrospect.
Possibly, yeah. But I think for health reasons,
Yeah,
it's a mental health reason thing to do.
yeah.
Because you don't. That's one of the reasons the bands I've been in with the Housemartins and the Beautiful South and the Current South, never had any arguments. We've never sort of disagreed about anything because we've just taken it after that initial Housemartins thing. We've taken it at our own pace. And that's really, it's really important to, I see sort of, and it does sound a bit wank complaining about it, but I think all the reasons you form a band, well, the reasons I formed a band was like playing gigs and traveling about and doing all, having fun. It's the things around it that you don't realize that you're going to do. Things like videos and television. You don't form a band. I didn't form a band to get on television. I formed a band to sort of make music. And if somebody liked it, play a great gig. And if loads of people like it, it'd be on the radio. I never envisaged being stood there in the middle of the field with makeup on and trying to, look like a donut. And I just thought, we've got to cut down on something here, like to do with promotion. Otherwise, it's just going to eat up at you. And when people say about people's weaker second albums, they don't realize capitalism has got hold of the first album and is shaking it for every last little bit that it can take from it until the singer hasn't got the time or hasn't got the space in his life to write the next set of songs.
Yeah.
That's quite often the case.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. I tend to think that it's a dance with the devil, isn't it? When you sign to a major label, it seems a bit churlish to it's like you can't cherry pick, can you? It's like if you take the money, you kind of done that Faustian deal, and you've got to do a certain amount of things that you're not probably comfortable with. On the other side of the coin, for somebody like you guys, your authenticity and your credibility rests on the fact that you do what you want to do. Right. And if you don't feel comfortable doing something, people can smell that. So it completely, that's I think probably a large part of why you've had such longevity and why people respect you for what you've done, because you weren't playing that game. You weren't wearing a kilt and trying to get on top of the pops. You weren't I can't get that image out of my head with Spandau Ballet. Anyway, it's been a long time. But one thing I really respected about you guys is that you clearly had a vision of how you wanted to present yourself. It was this, and it was a bit of, I'm always saying to people when I'm explaining about Sheffield, it's like, there's a great deal of fuck you in the Sheffield characteristic. It's, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. But really, ultimately, I'm doing it because I believe in it rather than I'm trying to impress you out there. Do you think there's some of that in it as well?
I think so, yeah. Subconsciously, yeah. I didn't I just didn't want to. Most of my contrariness comes from, to be honest. But yeah, Sheffield is quite contrary as well. There's a lot of, if you tell people to do that, they do the opposite. And I felt that, and I felt that going into every meeting and every, when people were trying to make about what we should do, I'd go deliberately quiet and then do the opposite after I left the meeting. But no, I think people like yourself, the people we work with now, have gained, we've gained their trust, and they just let me do what I enjoy doing, and they trust that I'm going to make a pop record, because I don't listen to a lot of pop records, but my voice isn't suited to anything else, really. I couldn't make
Well, not opera or anything like that.
not opera, not metal, no. I do it. I've got a range, that other people haven't got. I stick to what I know best. And
Well, you do it exceptionally well. So, I would definitely stick at this juncture in your career.
yeah.
I'd stick to it. Don't become a dustbin man or anything like that. So let's talk about the craft of songwriting, because was quite clear to me, having had a bit of a retrospective this morning, is you put a lot of effort into the lyrics and the narrative of songs. So it's obviously natural for you, but it's unusually relevant to you and the bands that you've been in. But also, actually, it seems to be another Sheffield thing. It's like the Arctic Monkeys thing,
Yeah.
And tell me how you feel about lyric writing and its importance in the songwriting process, and in fact, tell me about your songwriting process.
Well, it does begin with the lyrics,
Does it?
Yeah, it begins with the lyrics, and it begins with a meter to the lyrics, rhythm to the lyrics that I write. So I usually, it'll sound daft to most of the listeners, but if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But it just starts with in my head, and then the lyric is there already. I'm doing that to the lyric. So I was walking home from the shop 2 nights ago, and I just started singing a song about, he's on the day shift, she's on the night sort of thing. And then it just got back, and I write it all to a tune, and that's how the process works. A tune, including a bridge and a chorus. Now, if the tune's no good, I will just use that tune as needed to facilitate remembering the lyrics and remembering the rough, how it scans between.
Yeah, of course.
If it's a good tune, that's it. That's it. The whole thing's written. So, for example, something like Perfect 10, or You Keep It All In, or Sail the Ship Alone, that was the whole song written, including the chords, even though I can't play chords.
Right.
By that, I mean, so something like Sail the Ship Alone, I had the whole tune in my head and all the lyrics, but I had to explain to Dave, the guitarist, well, it's actually this chord, not the chord that you're thinking of.
Really?
Understand what I mean? So,
Okay. So do you play guitar, right?
sorry?
You play guitar. You
No,
don't.
I can't work, but I've written it. So I've written this song with chords without knowing chords. If you know what I mean, that's the weird thing. So I've got a note in my head, and for example, the person I work with now, Johnny, he'll say, "Oh, that's an E, so an A should work over." And I'll say, "No, it's something else." So I know what it is in my head, but I don't know how to play it. So though it can be quite a complicated process, even though I've got the whole tune. So there's 2 ways I write a song. One is that way,
Right.
which is the full song.
Right.
The other is combining the lyrics I've already got with some chords that Johnny or Dave Rotheray or originally in the Housemartins, Stan would have. And
Interesting.
yeah,
That's why the whole thing is so. Right. The way that we. Right. Frank.
tell sometimes. Sorry to interrupt. You can tell sometimes with 2 songs I wrote the second way, that is trying to squeeze my lyrics and a new melody into the chords. With something like Rotterdam or Happy Hour, you can hear me trying to fit the lyric in before the end of the line. So I go, "What a good place to be," really quickly, because I realised the end of the chords there. And the same with Rotterdam, you can hear me go, there's a hell of a lot of lyrics to fit in before Dave's riff finishes. So that's one way of doing it. And the other way is, as I said, all in my head.
Wow, that's something. I've never written a song like that in my life. We do it the opposite way around. We start with the rhythm, obviously, and then we get a groove going and an atmosphere, and then it suggests the lyrics, and that's. I think a lot of people work that way, but I don't know any other way to do it. I only ever once I dreamt a song, and I thought, and the arrangement, and I thought, I've got to get down to the studio to get it down before I forget it. But I'm quite impressed with that method of doing it. Particularly, you don't
way, but it's where I can't sing along and make a tune, on top of stuff, but that spoils my enjoyment.
And I've never encountered somebody who literally just writes the lyrics and the melody and has got kind of chords rolling around in their head.
No, yeah.
Who don't actually play the chords at the same time. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It can be quite frustrating because I can't play guitar. There was a song me and Daddy Brother wrote on Painting It Red called The River. And I'd written the whole melody and we were just trying to get this one chord, for hours.
Really?
Yeah, I was just at the end of the song, and then when we got it, we just
The lost chord. Right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's fascinating. I'm going to have a go at that, I think. God knows what. Yeah. So the Beautiful South, I mean, that went on for quite a while, didn't it, really? And that was very successful. He had some amazingly successful songs. And so, did you tour? You did a lot of touring with Beautiful South.
Yeah, we did. We got into eventually we got into the cycle that I'm still in now, which is basically we record an album, go on tour, then I write lyrics, then write the music, and then go back into the studio. So that was a sort of circular thing we did. But we toured a little bit more with the Beautiful South. We went to America.
How was that?
Oh, we loved it. Yeah, it was great fun. It was really nice because when we went, we were at the height of our popularity in this country. And when I'm sure you know about this, but when you're at the height of your popularity in your home country, half the people who follow you are not particular, and it's no problem with me at all. They just like your tunes on the radio. They come along, they sing along, etc., etc. So when we went to America, it was more people were, indie heads in America. Right. So dissecting the lyrics and reminding you really why you wrote them. And there was a lot of proper fans who were listening, who'd perhaps disappeared in England and gone on to, more accessible bands. So it was nice. And the DJs we got interviewed by really studied the record. They'd be really interested. Why did you write this song? And as you know, from America, there's a sort of, what's the opposite to an Anglophobe? Anglophile.
Yeah.
The Anglophile. There's a lot of Anglophiles and they love British music and they love the lyrics and they love finding out silly new words for things that they didn't realize were used. And so it's really nice to go there and have people appreciate you as a lyricist. Whilst,
you're a great lyricist, I have to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And no bullshit. I genuinely think, it is defined you.
I think it's a Sheffield thing again, right? It's because I don't think I'm very good. I think because of that, I'm constantly pushing myself. I don't think I'm crap or anything like that, but I look back over stuff. I was just saying, you Burke, you could have made that really good lead in, and you were trying to be clever at the end, etc. So I'm really critical, and I think that's quite a Sheffield thing, is to not be above yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Not for the likes of us. Yeah,
exactly. And I try and knock myself down before I get knocked down. Do you understand what I mean? Is that well, I know I can do better. So I think that has turned me into quite an interesting and, if I may say so, a good lyricist.
You definitely are
good. Not thinking I'm good has helped me. David Bowie always said, didn't he? He said he never really liked any of his records after he'd made them, and he felt that was what really drove him on, was the fact that he'd listen to Steve's record and just think, I could do better than that. And I'm in a similar state with I'm obviously not like that with my records because I've made the same record for 35 years. But lyrically, I'm always trying to change. I'm always trying to do sort of different things and represent different people in the lyrics.
There's two key points to your lyric writing. One is your appreciation of meter, as you say, and rhythm within. I'm speaking technically here. I teach songwriting, so it's an interesting study for me. And the second one is you have and this is yet another Sheffield characteristic, or northern characteristic, but more Sheffield, is this kind of kitchen sink drama thing, which I really like, and I've never been able to do it myself because all our stuff started off with the early Human League. It was all like sci-fi and kind of otherworldly. But your lyrics are very grounded in personal experience. I think a lot of people like your work because it's related. Not only are they great pop tunes, but they can relate to what you're talking about. You seem like an amenable character, right? And that's quite something. It's not something to be taken for granted. That.
No, I was talking to my wife about something to do with this the other day. I said, there's painters who, like Lowry or whatever, who painted people in the city. And there's people like Constable who painted these gorgeous landscapes in Norfolk or wherever. And I said, I'm definitely in the former. I said, if you put me in the countryside, I couldn't write nothing about nobody. Do you know what I mean? It's just not. I love the countryside. I absolutely love it. But if I got a pen and piece of paper out, I wouldn't be able to write a single thing about it.
Exactly.
People. And it has to be people who interest me. And, I don't hang around with more interesting people than anybody else. But I see it. I see a bus stop. When I pass a bus stop, there's always somebody there. I think something's going on there.
What's their story?
Yeah, and it's a little bit being nosy as well. Like it's sort of like working something out about people. And I'm always playing games in my head where if I go past the bus stop of people, and then I go past another stop about 400 yards up, I think who would win out of the game of five-a-side with time? And I've memorised them. Well, I know that the old bloke with shopping bags. Who's going to tell him he's in goal? Because he is. It's obvious. He can't move about. He might have played football at a high level, but he's not moving about anymore. Sorry. Well, it's the woman with the dog who's going to have to announce that because I can't go back to that queue. I'm in this queue now, and I'm always looking at people and thinking, yeah, what's in that bag? Is it his shopping, or is it his wife's head? Or do you understand? I mean, it's like there's always something interesting about people, and if you took people away out of the equation, I wouldn't be a very good writer. It's people I buzz off,
I think that's a really important statement you just made there, and also it relates to your political views, my political views. I'm a proud socialist.
Yeah,
I can't believe what's happening to this country. It breaks my heart seeing the people we love struggling. Not just the people we love, but I love people. I'm like you. I think that's at the heart of socialism. Is actually they've not had all their emotions stripped out in private schools. People have to. When you're poor, and you live in a community, whether it's north, south, east, west, doesn't make any difference. You've got to interface in a significant and human way with the people around you because that is all you have.
Yeah.
And I grew up in that environment. I presume you grew up in something similar.
I did. I grew up with kids like me, and weirdly enough, even in Surrey, I moved down to Surrey. My dad put us in a school. I don't know how it managed to get in Surrey, but it was like apparently it was on the edge of Surrey's biggest housing estate. This school, but it was a school which was hard, and I wouldn't say hard, but rough,
Yeah.
So my friends from there are the same as me, and so yeah. And I also played football. I played football all the way through, and managed football teams till 5-6 years ago. So football people were the same people as me. So and my dad managed bands and football teams as well. So it was all around me. Those people were, like people I spent every day with, and like, I think you never forget that, and I still now I live right in the middle of Manchester, on a ordinary street. I mean, kids just walk to the local school. There's nothing. So I don't know what I'd do. I quite fancy retiring somewhere green, but I wouldn't. As I said, it would have to be after I stop writing. I'm not so sure if I could stop writing.
No. Come on, you obviously love it. It's your calling, isn't it?
What I do all the time, just anyway. And I did it at school. I've got all my books. I did it at school and I did it working in an office. I've got all my books from when I was at school, just writing about the teachers and passing it on. I've kept them all.
Wow.
I've kept a quote book. I worked in an office straight from school. I went into an office as a T-boy and worked there for 3 years. And I've got every single quote of everybody who came into our office, like interesting quotes, not just a good morning, but so I've got that all written down.
Wow.
All the
Yeah, have you thought about publishing these things?
Yeah, I could sort of quite fancy do it because I've also this is even more boring. I've also kept a top 20 chart of all my favourite songs since 1977, which I still do every month. So I sort of want to do a book, like now's the time, I suppose, over the next few years, a book which is accessible online, or a book that you could touch the pages and it would open up. For example, I've got every beer mat from every drink that I had from about 1980 to 1992. Every crisp wrapper. I've kept everything.
What?
I've got in my drawer here. I've got every single boarding pass that I've ever had since 1986.
Oh, you're going to be. Let's fast forward a decade. You're going to be one of them blokes with fucking piles of newspapers.
No, I'm not, because I am able to. That's what I want. I said, no, I'm able to control. It's just weird little things. I pick up stuff on like I pick stuff off the floor. I've got loads of like little stupid ID things in, like in here, and like weird. But so
Have you ever? I mean, when did you move into your current house? Have you?
I've been here about 13 years, I think.
Right.
12, 13 years.
We just, myself and my wife had just moved out from our family home. We've been in Primrose Hill in London for like 35 years, and we just downsized. The frightening amount of shit that we had, I mean, literally skip loads of stuff that I'd kept. And it's now weird. I'm now living in a kind of 2-bedroom modern flat, a bit like actually going back to when I was in council houses, council flats when I was young.
Yeah.
And I realise now how much of how you perceive your personality is in the stuff that the shit that you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I felt a bit lost at times in this last year. I'm going, who am I? If I'm not these things, what am I? I mean, just like, is it in my head?
Yeah, I've often thought, because my house is sort of like I don't know, emporium of shit, I would call it. It's got stuff I've collected, and half of it's off the floor. Like football cards I've found and people's Woolworths ID, I think also another thing I've connected it to is when you're in a band, and when I was traveling around, particularly with the Beautiful South, I didn't keep a diary. I didn't know what was happening. It was all a bit of a whirlwind. So I just used to take the do not disturb signs off the door and collect them, and thought, well, that's like sort of having a little momentum, and I know where I've been, so I think there's definitely an element of being in a band, and just now I've got a bit more time when I go away. The tours are very slow. We go to a football ground, we'll go to the shop, get like a pennant or like a bottle opener or something like that.
Snow globe.
Yeah, but when you were doing interviews as soon as you woke up and then after the gig, etc., and it was a bit more difficult, so you'd have to pick something off the floor or the.
I mean, this is fascinating, a fascinating insight for your many fans, I'm sure. And okay, we're going to do the smash hits type thing now, which is like where I ask you your favorite things. So, what's your favorite film?
My favorite film.
Before we start all this, I always have to say that I fully acknowledge that if I ask the same questions next week, if anybody asked me these questions next week, it'd probably be totally different answers. So it's just what pops into your head, really.
Okay.
It's also the ages, that's what I'm saying.
Scent of a Woman. I'll say.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that film very much.
These are all films and all. Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite book? Come on, you're a writer. You must have. What are reading?
Call It a Canary by Peter Tinnerswood.
I have no idea what that is.
I wanted to talk about it because there's a good chance you might remember there was a quite poor ITV series called I Didn't Know You Curved with Uncle Mort and Carter Brandon.
Yeah, that rings.
Like a comedy thing. And that was his books, Peter Tinnerswood books. They were very northern, and he's died now, but his books, Call It a Canary, I Didn't Know You Cared, Except You're a Bird, Touch of Daniel, fantastic books. They're my favourites.
Thank you for that. TV show, old, new, box set, anything.
Oh, it's just about to start. Doctors. Love Doctors. I don't know why. I quite often try joining it. I find it really moving. And it's dead corny. My daughter sometimes, she'll be home from Leicester on Friday or Saturday, and she laughs at me for actually watching it. I mean, there's all sorts of programs I like. I still like Match of the Day. Still love it. And I've got a real particular things I watch during the day. I love Family Guy at night. I like watching it in bed with my wife who watches Family Guy, and just dead simple stuff when it comes to telly.
Yeah, I'm deep into Schitt's Creek at the moment. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my nephew was recommending that.
Oh my God, it's unputdownable. It's the characters are so well drawn. Yeah.
When it comes to sort of series, actual, like box sets, my favorite is Love Hate, which is an Dublin sort of gangster thing.
Oh right, I've never heard of that.
You can only really get it on DVD, and I'm getting probably like you. I'm getting lazier and lazier. Not be on the telly or the computer now, as opposed to
Okay.
you have to bend down.
Oh yeah, I can still bend down, I think. Epiphanal moment in your life.
Oh, oh, crikey. Probably getting married. I leave a lot of things very late in life. I got married 5 years ago.
Wow.
For the first time.
Wow.
I drove for the first time. I drove a car for the first time.
I still don't drive.
Yeah, and probably getting married. I got married in Germany to my wife. I've got a lot of German friends, and that was just it's very different. It showed that I was on a different mindset to want to be married and to enjoy the day and to
Brilliant. That begs the question: what was your mindset before then?
Just off with the fairies,
All right, fair enough. We'll not go any deeper into that.
No.
Who's your other favourite musical artist or composer?
Lyrically, Smokey Robinson, and Elvis Costello. Musically, vocally, probably Al Green. I love Al Green. Just too many. I like nearly all music. There's not much music where I think, oh God, what's that? I just listen to everything. I love everything. I love the sound of the human voice.
Yeah, me too.
Make hit things. So.
An unfulfilled ambition.
None. I'm not an ambitious person at all. I've
Well, I suppose ambition is a loaded word. Maybe something that you'd really like to do, not necessarily to be successful, but just as a creative thing or something. Anything like that? I mean, you've already done a musical kind of thing, I suppose.
yeah. I think football scouts, because I study football. I write down names of players years and years before they go on. So if there's a 15-year-old somewhere, I'll know about him. I'll try and know about him.
Wow.
And I keep books of them, and they keep on going on to be very good players. So I'd like to do that on the side. But scouting wise, because of Brexit, most of the players I look at are Dutch or German, and they can't get over here anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, you can't get a visa, right?
No, not very internationally. So it's sort of cut out. I go to football all over, but particularly go to a hotbed of football called Volendam in Holland, and Permanent around there. They produce and produce and produce. But now all those players are staying there or going to Ajax or Feyenoord or whatever, which is disappointing.
Ajax are doing well this season, aren't they? Doing really well.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. So which of your own work are you most proud of?
Well, I suppose I was going to say I'm least ashamed of. No, in terms of songs that people would know, probably something like "Prettiest Eyes."
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It was sort of written about my mum and dad, and their sort of love for each other, something like that, maybe. It's nice singing. There's a lot of songs that I didn't sing for a very long time, you see, because I had the Housemartins, and then I didn't sing Happy Hour for another from 1987 to 2016, so a long time,
Wow.
because I was in the beautiful South, and then I was in solo stuff that I didn't play it. So there's a load of stuff. We sung "Song Forever" about 3 years ago, and I hadn't sung that for a long time. 12, 13 years. So
Wow.
yeah, so songs like that. On the last tour, I sung "Sail This Ship Alone," and it felt that I was quite proud of that. But there's other, yeah. I don't talk very well about my own.
No, you don't have to. It's just a curious thing. What songwriters and composers that I've interviewed, when you ask them that question, a lot of them get a bit embarrassed, like you.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Yeah.
But it's an insight for people, because
Yeah.
I often say with M17, that we always announce before we do "Let Me Go," which is one of our songs. We always go, well, this is Glenn says this is my favorite, and I go, this is my favorite as well, but it might not be yours, and the audience always laughs. So if you, well, this is a good question for you, I think. If you hadn't become a musician, what do you think you would have become? What career would you have chosen?
I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe football. I played football from a very young age, and my dad was a very good footballer. And my brothers were good footballers. I might have stuck with that a little bit more, but I don't think I would have made the grade.
Okay, I don't know where you play, what position you play. I'm going to have a guess. I think this is quite a funny game.
Probably get it wrong.
I'm saying box-to-box midfielder.
No.
Oh.
No,
Well,
box-to-box defender, really. I played sort of centre-back, but both behind the back line and in front of the back line. So just really, really deep sweeper, and occasionally centre-back. I was built like Gary Mabbott,
right.
walk for the centre-back, but I was very aggressive in the air. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I would have probably something connected to football, but I wouldn't have made the grade as a footballer. I don't think I would have liked the discipline.
Right.
I was very, very a good cross country runner. I was at Hallamshire Harriers, when I was young, but I wasn't. I wasn't built like a footballer. I was.
Right.
So maybe something connected to football. I mean, one of the reasons my dad said, "Oh, you got to work in an office," because it was an accountant's office, is I wrote everything down. Like I was keeping leagues of like marble games and Subbuteo. I'd keep all the leagues, and so it did sort of make sense. What my dad said is you should be keeping records of stuff. So maybe if I'd been better at maths, maybe stats to do with football or sport.
Analyst.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that didn't really exist back then, but
No.
now it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Did you used to love those those league tables where you used to change all? I used to love all that stuff in Score magazine. At the start of every season, they used to have the league tables, and at the end of the thing, you used to change them every week. Did you have those?
Yeah, they do a Velcro one now.
Shit, I need it.
With all four divisions.
Oh my god!
At the end, give me your email address and I'll try and find one. But I'll at least send you a photograph of one.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, if you do find it, let me know. That'd be great.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're all in the different colours and really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's martin.ware@mac.com. I don't care who knows it. I just chuck them in the bin if I don't want to talk to people. Mac.com. Martin with a Y, remember, or else it won't get. Yeah. And finally, this has been great, by the way. Thank you so much. What's your favourite synth? I know it's not really your bag.
It isn't at all.
Have you ever played a synth?
No. I'm absolutely ignorant towards synths. I've gone through that period where I've loved that type of music, and I still listen to stuff which is heavily synthesized. I'm just trying to think of the name of the band. I'll look them up quickly now. A brilliant band. But no, I wouldn't know. Sorry.
At least you're honest about it.
Yeah, I am. I'm ignorant of. Is one of them called a Korg? Like that?
That's a brand, yeah.
That's a brand. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that.
Let's just say let's say you're a fan of the Korg oeuvre.
Yeah. I'm looking for Sad Night Dynamite. They use a lot of synths.
Right. So do you know?
Love them.
Great, and there's lots of Sheffield bands throughout the years have kind of woven the synthetic thing into a rock sound, which I think is quite interesting. That
interesting. That again, that was a back to Sheffield. It was a weird sort of kink in its behaviour, how obsessed it was equally with sort of like the Kraftwerk stuff, and also sort of American dance floor stuff.
Yes, and that's exactly what made our band.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't find that anywhere else. No. I include Manchester and London, maybe London to a degree. When Spandau started off, they were a proper band. People forget that. I went to see them at Heaven in the early days, and they were a proper band, and they were good, and they were influenced. They're the only sort of band who I thought where they've got the synths of almost Eastern Europe or Germanic with the dance floor desire. But other than that, but in Sheffield there's like 3 or 4 bands like that. Yeah. And it's just like, and I know you all got to know each other, but weren't necessarily knowledgeable of each other when it started off, which is
well, one of the nice things about this podcast has been to kind of reconnect with Sheffield's band kind of thread through, because I left in 81, so I knew the scene from outside, but I didn't really have an in-depth appreciation of it. So like I've now become close friends with Rasheen Murphy and and DJ Parrott, and I'm not close friends with DJ Parrott. I want to interview him for the next for this, but also there's new bands like International Teachers of Pop, who are great, and there's a whole scene in Sheffield which is kind of really properly underground, which is still going to this day. And I've got a lot of friends. Do you know Maxine Peake by any chance? She's
No.
She's worked with a bunch of Sheffield bands, and she's an actress, obviously. Anyway, thank you.
The Self-Esteem record. That's another great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The band she was in before then, I can't remember. We had them as playing with us on a couple of tours back. But
Did you? No.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Paul. Well, hopefully we'll get to meet in the flesh. I wish, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I wish United all the best.
Yeah.
And we need strong football teams in our town, and
that would be great.
It's if we can both be successful, that makes me very happy. As long as we're in the same division.
We're in the one below.
All right, man. I'll see you soon. Cheers, man. All right, you too. Bye.